What's up, guys? Let 'em Taters here. Welcome to Season 2 of Alliance War. In Season 2, I'm going to be taking a slightly different approach to my war videos. I want to treat them like tutorials, just using my war experiences on kind of how to not die, as you saw from the header there. And I am not sure that I can live up to that promise, or I guess that insinuation, but if I do die, then I should at least be able to diagnose the mistakes that I made that caused me to die, and even still could kind of fit into the theme of how not to die. Just do as I don't do in the cases where I do die. So that was kind of confusing, but okay. The first thing to do before joining attack is scout your path. In Season 2, I'll stick with lane 3 in the first couple sections, and then for the final section, I'm going to be full-time on the top path, or path 1, and then right up to that unblockable 2 and power gain mini-boss. So I scouted my path here. I'm always going to bring Blade and Magic, but my third attacker sometimes does fluctuate. It's generally going to be Ghost Rider for the Danger Sense expansion to villains, but if I have a lot of Mystics on my path, and maybe I'll bring in Dormammu to expand that Danger Sense to apply to all Mystics. So I've got my team here, and one other thing too that I'm probably going to be doing throughout this season, or I guess not be doing, I should say, is you're not going to see a lot of my face, if any of it. And there are a couple of reasons. Mainly, it is a little bit distracting, and also kind of a logistical issue or hurdle for me. It's just much easier to record commentary over a video as opposed to record video with commentary. So in this first fight here, I've got a 550 crossbones. And my strategy here, if you want to just be as cautious as possible, is to, you'll see here that I parry him, but I don't attack into him after his parry. For the most part, this is basic information, but he can shrug off debuffs, and if he does that, then you can get caught if you try to attack into him after you've stunned him, if he stuns off or shrugs off the stun. So that was my strategy there. A disclaimer, obviously, a lot of this is going to seem pretty obvious, and in addition to that, I do have two 565 attackers, so not everybody is going to have two 565 attackers, and that certainly makes things easier. So hopefully it doesn't come across as arrogant or anything like that, but for this next fight, I've got a tech champion on 27, which is True Strike and Stun Immune. And everybody ought to know by now that this is an Ultron, or at least likely to be an Ultron. And of course it is, because it's always an Ultron. And my strategy against Ultron, as you probably know because I've fought him so many times in this node, is to let him attack into my block and bait out his heavy, and then bait out his L1, and kind of rinse and repeat. If you're not too aggressive, like if you're passive with him, or just cautious, usually you shouldn't have any issues with the regen Ultron. The Labyrinth Ultron is slightly more difficult, but such is not the case here, so it doesn't matter. But as I mentioned previously, I'm going to be taking the top path in the final section, and that means that my first node in the top path is power gain. And this is almost always a Mystic, and I almost always use Blade in this case, but I'm actually going to choose to use Magic here because it is the first war of the season. It's imperative to have a clean war in the first war, and Magic is definitely the safest bet. Just be very, very patient, get to an L2, and then you can power lock the opponent, and you don't have to worry about power gain anymore. So that's what I do here. With Mordo, playing him stun immune, of course, you can stun him if you want to. You just don't attack into him afterwards, but He does have a power gain buff that kind of recycles in and out, and if you're constantly stunning him, you're actually kind of enabling him to build more power before he uses his special. So I just never stun him unless maybe I'm using Blade or something. But this one is a 4-star tech champion on Unblockable 1, and going into this fight, I assumed it was a war machine. It's not, but I do want to talk about a strategy against War Machine on Unblockable 1, and this applies specifically to using Blade as an attacker. You can parry stun War Machine, or if he's on stun immune, you can parry War Machine, build up those bleeds, and if you're staying in close proximity to War Machine or any defender here, then of course you can gain power with Blade. And then if it were War Machine, I could build up to an L2, launch the L2, and that should kill him before he ever gets to an L1. And you see there, I did kind of apply that same strategy to Green Goblin, despite the fact that the first component of his L1 is pretty simple to evade, and then you can block the rest if you want. So this is the Bane node. It's the new hardest node on my path. Previously, I took path 3 and then switched to 2 in the final section. But in switching to path 1 in the final section, I'm going to be taking this every war, and it's definitely a tough node. This is a 345 mutant champion, unawakened, so I know with relative certainty that it's going to be a Nightcrawler. At least I'm planning for a Nightcrawler. And I don't have a great history against Nightcrawler. I have trouble switching his stances, and I don't really want to talk too much about how to switch his stances, because it's been covered ad nauseum, and you can certainly find YouTube videos on how to effectively switch his stance. But in this fight, I just didn't feel comfortable trying to switch his stance. I wanted to just be patient. My plan initially was to build up to an L3 and then just launch the L3, and that should wipe him out. But I actually tried to get away with an L2 here, you see, and he evaded the second part, and then I dashed into him like an idiot, and he parried me. So, you know, against Nightcrawler on Bane, and just against any defender on Bane, the key is just to obviously be cautious of that Bane timer, and fortunately, the Bane node is not stun immune, so use the stuns. Sometimes that means finishing combos early, maybe after 3 hits or so, just to kind of align the timer with your attacks. But nevertheless, took care of Nightcrawler, and I'm actually going to get a shot here at finishing up this Medusa boss. There is 1 attack bonus remaining, so we've given up 2 deaths to her already, but at this point in the war, we have comfortably secured a victory, so it's not terribly urgent to. I guess it's a little bit looser going in. It's not as tense as it would be if it were a super close war. So I am using some small boosts, and I want to save the bigger boosts for closer wars or tougher fights, whatever you want to, however you want to justify it. But I do throw in a couple boosts here, and then I'm going to use an advanced power boost. And if you're using magic against Medusa, the advanced power boost is, in my opinion, critical. The goal with magic is to get to an L3 as quickly as possible, and depending on the sig level of the Medusa that you're facing, you might be able to, if you have 5 out of 5 Mystic Dispersion, you might be able to get to an L3 before she gets that 3rd Fury buff, which activates Living Strands. I don't do it here. She's just a high sig level, so she gets to Living Strands super fast. And you see here, twice in that fight, I took a heavy, and Medusa will just tear you up. I mean, her attack is just super high, especially when she has Living Strands active. Those 3 Fury buffs really boost her attack. So, but if you do get to an L3 with magic, wait until Medusa activates Living Strands, and then launch that L3. It'll nullify all the Fury buffs in addition to any other buffs that she has, and you'll also do some additional damage per buff that she had. So, since there are no attack bonuses left, and since I still have some boosts active, I just jump right in with Blade again and proceed to get parried. So in the first fight, I took 2 heavies, and then in this fight, I got parried right out of the gate. And then you'll see here, same deal. I'm way too slow. My rhythm was just off in this scenario. I was actually at work, and I went out to my car to take this fight in peace, and I just was out of rhythm the entire time. So anyway, Ghost Rider, obviously, might as well just go back in there. With Ghost Rider, his L1 will Fate Seal the opponent, nullifying and blocking any buffs for a certain amount of time. That's dependent on how many judgments you have built with Ghost Rider. So, but generally speaking, he is a fantastic matchup against Medusa. And in the past, I have 2-shot Medusa bosses with a 550 Ghost Rider. I don't here though, and I'm done. This Medusa is going to get cleaned up. And then another thing that I've added to this season is I want to keep a running tally of my deaths and items used. So here are some stats. And that's it. Thanks for watching.